We're at the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl, here in beautiful Pasadena, California, home to one of college football's most historic sites and also home to the UCLA Bruins, who've made headlines in the college football world these last few months, but not because of what they did on the field last year, but what they have done off the field. The Bruins made headlines taking former Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava, a guy who was making over $2 million with the Volunteers, now making less than $1 million as the new quarterback of UCLA. And today we're here to predict and analyze UCLA's schedule and record for this upcoming college football season. Can Nico Iamaleava get them to the postseason, or will they fall short once again? Deshaun Foster's first season here in LA was not a good one. It was a roller coaster. He had a horrible performance at Big Ten Media Days. The Bruins started off 1-5, but then rallied, won a handful of Big Ten Conference games, including a big one on the road against Nebraska to get to 4-5, but ultimately fell short. Lost to Washington and USC, beat Fresno State, finished the year at 5-7. Now you look at the roster, Nico Iamaleava does come in, giving them consistency at the quarterback position, which they really didn't have last year. But does he have any help? Yes, adding Mikey Matthews from California is a big help. Quasi Gilmer is a huge addition at the wide receiver position. The running game, though, needs some massive help. Deshaun Foster, a guy who's known for his coaching in the running game, they didn't have one last year. The Bruins ranking 132nd in rushing, had over 100 rushing yards just 3 times last season, and only had 4 rushing touchdowns. It was a horrendous year for UCLA on the ground. They do have a rebuilt offensive line. They do add the addition of Javian Thomas and Jalen Berger from Wisconsin. So overall, this offense with a quarterback that should be better, with a running game that should be better, this offense should improve after being one of the worst in the country in 2024. The defense was a small bright spot. They allowed 21 points or less in 5 of their final 7 games, but they do lose a handful on the front 7, especially at the linebacking position. But the secondary is loaded with key transfers. UCLA's defense as a whole could be one of the more underrated units in the Big Ten. You take a look at their schedule, though. It's brutal. It's really, really tough, and such is life in the expanded Big Ten. They open up the season right here at the Rose Bowl against Utah, a former Pac-12 matchup. Utah now a member of the Big 12, UCLA obviously a member of the Big 10. This is going to be a loss for the Bruins, unfortunately. Yes, Utah coming off a disappointing season of their own, but they obviously own the coaching edge with Kyle Whittingham. They add a guy named Devin Dampier. If you don't know his name, you will know it after week 1. This is the guy who threw for over 2,700 yards and rushed for over 1,100 yards last year with New Mexico. Huge addition to this Utah team that still has hopes of winning the Big 12 in 2025. I just don't think this UCLA defense, while it might be good, especially in the secondary, can contain the dual threat capability of Dampier. Utah comes on the road and wins this game in a formal rivalry matchup of sorts from the Pac-12. UCLA does bounce back, though, back-to-back wins on the road at UNLV and at home against New Mexico. That UNLV game not going to be easy at all. Dan Mullen, the new head coach of the Rebels. On the road also, you should add, they add Alex Orji in from Michigan at quarterback, a very underrated UNLV squad that, remember, was 1 win away from making the college football playoff last year. But I do believe UCLA has enough to go on the road and get that win. So going into their early bye week, they're 2-1. 2-1 out of the early bye week, not too bad. Out of that bye week, they go on the road to Northwestern, and that's going to be a bit of a problem because Northwestern, despite how bad they were last year, it's going to be much better this year. And of course, per usual, no one's talking about Northwestern. The Wildcats, though, added Preston Stone, a very capable quarterback, in from SMU. They do return their very elite running back in Cam Porter, and just like UCLA, have an extremely underrated defense. Off the week of rest is great. Northwestern, not really a difficult place to play, but this team plays very, very hard for Coach Braun, and I do believe that the Wildcats will get this win. UCLA dropping to 2-2 and obviously going to drop to 2-3 with a loss here at home to Penn State, who many believe could be the #1 team in the country to start the year, a team who absolutely has national title aspirations with so much coming back for James Franklin's squad. UCLA, despite only losing 27-11 to the Nittany Lions last year, does not stand a chance despite having home field advantage. So a 2-1 start drops to 2-3, but they'll pick up 2 wins in a row. On the road at Michigan State and back home against Maryland. Now, before people want to freak out, I'm going to tell you right now, UCLA is going to at least split the road games against Northwestern and Michigan State. They're not going to win both, but they're not going to lose both. So if you think it's ridiculous that we have them winning in East Lansing, then fine. Have them losing there. Then you have them beating Northwestern. they're going to split those games. I just believe Northwestern a little bit tougher, especially at the quarterback position. They'll lose that game. They'll beat Michigan State, who was 5-7 last year. Aiden Childs probably not going to be the answer in East Lansing. Jonathan Smith still dealing with a massive rebuilding project with the Spartans. UCLA, better built all the way around, should be able to go into Michigan State and win. East Lansing, not impossible to win at either. The Spartans had 3 home losses last year to Ohio State, Indiana, and Rutgers by a combined score of 126-31. So it's not the most difficult place to play by any means. And then Maryland at home, a great opportunity for Michigan State, or for UCLA to come back and kind of regroup. Maryland, a team that struggled mightily last year and will so again this year under Mike Locksley. Then on the road at Indiana. So they're 4-3. Look, they got a winning record. They're about to come into their second bye week. They're about to come into the final month of the season. They don't stand much of a chance on the road against Indiana either. And now many will say, well, Indiana loses so much. Look, they're probably not going to be a playoff team again, sure. But Kurt Cignetti built that team from scratch through the transfer portal last year. He's basically doing the exact same thing again this year with the Hoosiers. Indiana won here at the Rose Bowl last year, 42-13. Now they've got a very capable quarterback, California transfer Fernando Mendoza, coming in to be quarterback for the Hoosiers. Now on the road, long road trip for the Bruins. I just don't see them beating Indiana there. So going into the final month of the season, the final third of the season, UCLA is 4-4, needing just 2 wins to go bowling. But look at who they play. A very good Nebraska team. On the road at Ohio State, Washington, at USC. A very tough November for the Bruins. Coming out of the bye week, they play Nebraska, who they did beat in Lincoln 27-20 just last year. But this Nebraska team's way too good, guys. Year 3 under Matt Rule, everywhere he's been, is typically the year he takes off. And Nebraska's got all the pieces. They've got a competent quarterback in Dylan Raiola, a very underrated defense, very capable team all the way around. Even though they're coming off this bye week, I believe Nebraska is the much better team across the board, much better coached team across the board, and with little revenge on their mind, they do get the job done here at the Rose Bowl. They're 4-5. They're going to lose at Ohio State, reigning national champions who dominated here in the Rose Bowl. Remember last year, number 8 seed destroyed number 1 Oregon right here on New Year's Day. Kind of shocked everybody how bad that game was. Yes, they're going to Columbus. UCLA not standing much of a chance against the Buckeyes, but not many teams will. They're 4-6, meaning they've got to win out to go bowling. They do beat Washington. They do beat Washington, a team that I'm very excited about this year, a team that has a lot of talent offensively, but maybe some questions more on defense. Senior day for the Bruins right here at the Rose Bowl. I think that Nico Iamaleava shows up, shows out, keeps their bowl hopes alive, just like they kind of did last year for a little bit. They beat Washington in what could be a back-and-forth game despite the Bruins losing 31-19 last year, meaning the battle for LA will decide if UCLA goes bowling or not. On the road at USC at the Coliseum. Win, you're in the postseason. You lose, you're 5-7 for the second year in a row. They only lost to the Trojans 19-13 last year. So they hung with Lincoln Riley's squad. And they will hang with them again in 2025, but they will have the same result. UCLA will lose to USC in the season finale. It will be close. It will be maybe a little bit more high scoring than this year's last year's matchup. These two teams have split the last 4 meetings between the Bruins and the Trojans, but Lincoln Riley has completely revamped his staff. Jaden Mayava is a very dang good quarterback for USC, will fit Riley's mold perfectly. They have a lot more guys coming back on defense than people realize. D'Anton Lim, one of the best defensive minds in the game as of right now. USC at home on their senior day gets the job done, and UCLA, for the second year in a row, falls short at 5-7. A disappointing year considering all the noise and all of the hype, maybe you want to call it, surrounding Nico Iamaleava, surrounding the transfer portal additions that they got, but the schedule is simply going to be too much for this team. They're more competitive than they were last year. They have a lot of one-possession games on the schedule this year, but again, falling just short. Deshaun Foster, 5-7 in year 2 with the Bruins. Will he be around for one more, or will they cut him loose after another disappointing year, especially, again, given all the hype and competent play surrounding him? So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube, live here from the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. A bucket list place for me, as I'm sure it is for many of you. Hope to actually get to a game out here sometime, but a beautiful setting, a historic site, no better place than to bring you our UCLA football predictions. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, check out everything down in the description below, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.